Good evening and welcome to the Limbury Theatre here at the Royal Opera House and this special insight for International Women's Day. My name is Brenda Emmanus and I'm delighted to be here with you tonight as we explore the theme at the heart of this year's celebration, embracing equity. We'll begin this evening with an exclusive performance of Born to Exist, The Woman I Know, choreographed and created by the Royal Ballet's emerging choreographer, Joseph Toonga. Following the performance, we'll have a panel discussion in which Joseph will join us, and the rest of the panel will include the creative producer at the Royal Ballet, Emma Southworth, Rambert dancer Aishwarya Raut, and independent hip-hop creatives Kloe Dean and Nadia Gardner. Now, our conversation will explore gender equity in the dance form, from challenging gender stereotypes to addressing discrimination and driving forward towards a more equal and equitable dance world. But please first help me to give a warm welcome to the emerging choreographer, Joseph Toonga. Hi, Joseph.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining. I just wanted to take a moment to introduce the piece we're just about to see. It is the third and final instalment of a trilogy of yours called Born to Exist. This particular piece is called The Woman I Know. What's the relevance of the title?
So the relevance of the title is being a son of an immigrant, a mom from Cameroon, migrating here and kind of looking at her journey, what was her journey, and use that as a stimulus to kind of gather ideas from different females and different young men, the experience of growing up with a black and ethnic minority woman.
And what's the work about?
What's the work about? Oh.
What was the genesis of the idea? What inspired it?
What inspired it, I think for me, is growing up never seeing black females on stage. And I think that was part of the main statement. It's like the first thing I did in the studio, asked the guys is, you know, coming from a hip-hop background, have you ever seen an all-female cast, black on stage, doing a main production? And we kind of struggled to kind of think, like, and it's like, actually, let's use that as a stimulus, that being on stage is a statement, is a protest, different sizes, different hair, different backgrounds, and how we celebrate that, but also acknowledge, you know, their journeys, you know, are not always so straight and joyful at times.
And being a male choreographer, what was it like exploring the experiences of women and translating it into dance?
It was hard in terms of making sure that I made it always clear that in the studio, I'm looking at it from my lens, you know, I can relate to them, you know, if you're looking, being a black man, but that's how far I can relate to them. So it's about trying to get them to guide me in terms of, you know, what's my perception of my mom's upbringing and looking after me, and what's actually their journey, and how can we try and match that. So that's why the title comes, The Woman I Know. So it's about talking about my experiences and actually their experiences. So I'm not talking about, oh, this is how black and ethnic minority women are, this is the journey. It's just a hint, a moment into their life that you're going to see on stage.
And as a creative, what do you hope that the audience here in the Limbury and watching beyond take away from this?
I think first thing, I put on my Instagram the other day, it's about, as my hashtag, is about bringing new stories into this building. And I think that's hopefully what can encourage more people to come, that actually this building is developing pieces of work that's for the public, that's for London, and that's for people who consider themselves, you know, British, open, and want to be here. So I think that's the main thing I want the audience to come back, go and feel like they can come back to watch more work.
Well, we're about to find out very, very soon. Yeah. Thank you very, very much.
See ya.
And that was Joseph. We'll hear more from him later. Just before we begin, I'd just like to make you know that this work is suitable for audiences of 14 and over because it contains swearing and rude physical gestures. So now for the performance of Born to Exist, The Woman I Know, choreographed, as we know, from Joseph Toonga, music by Mikey J. Asante, performed by Aisha Webber, Amanda Souza and Paris Crossley. Enjoy.
actually make you nervous?
Eu te deixo desconfortável?
Say it again. Say it again, but louder.
Eu te deixo desconfortável?
Again.
Eu te deixo desconfortável? Eu realmente te deixo desconfortável? Eu te deixo desconfortável? Nós te deixamos desconfortáveis? See me. See me. See me. See me. Actually, see me. See me. See us. See us. Actually, see us. How many more times? Huh? How many more times have I got to say see us until you actually see us? Huh? Huh? Speak up! Speak up! Because we're right here. We're right here. And for some reason, you still can't see us. Huh? Why? Huh? Why? When we're right here. Huh? What is it? Huh? What is it? Huh? We're right here. We're right here. And you still can't see us. Huh? How? How? No! How? Huh? How? We're right here, and you still can't see us. Huh? How many more times? Huh? How many? How many more times have I got to say it? Huh? How many?
Se ela tá
How?
assim, se ela tá assim é porque
See
a
us!
culpa
No!
é
No!
sua.
See us!
A culpa
Sim.
é de todos vocês. Que porra é essa? Hã? Que porra é essa? Eu não tô aqui pra te servir. Que é um saco. Um saco. Um saco. Um saco. Toda vez eu tenho que explicar a mesma coisa. A mesma coisa. Eu tô cansada. Que porra é essa? Que porra é essa? Que porra é essa? Que porra é essa? Hã? Eu tenho que ficar falando toda hora pra vocês a mesma coisa. Um saco. Não! 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 Olhe pra mim! Olhe pra mim! Jesus!
name is Amanda de Souza. I'm from Brazil, yeah. I born in Minas Gerais, but I live here alone in Rio de Janeiro. All my families live in Minas Gerais, city Juiz de Fora. Yeah, I live in Rio de Janeiro from 5 years. I changed alone for more beautiful life, for more good life, good opportunity, for more experience life. So, Rio de Janeiro is one famous city in this country for beautiful places, beautiful food, beautiful culture, beautiful music. Yes, beautiful and a strong black woman, very, very strong. So to me, it's hard, it's very hard living this, not the city, but this country, Brazil, because one city racist, when don't have protection for black women, don't care if you are rich, if you are famous, don't care. Be black woman, don't have protection. The lost people won't have safe place to live. Every day I need to fight, I need to say for many same things, for my life, for my dreams. This is very hard. I don't care more about why the people think about this, but this to me is so hard because black woman is very strong. We are queens, you know. So this place is racist. This is not good. Sometimes, I want. Às vezes é muito difícil me colocar todo dia. Porque para ser uma mulher preta, a gente carrega esse mundo nas costas e a verdade é essa. E não interessa. Sabe, eu estou falando aqui de um lugar muito simples, mas muito importante, que só a gente sabe o que é ser mulher preta nesse mundo. Estou falando de mim porque eu moro no Brasil, mas eu imagino que qualquer parte do mundo é muito difícil. Muito difícil ser uma mulher preta. Muito difícil, porque nós somos pretas. Muito pretas. Mulheres pretas. Eu, Amanda, sou uma mulher preta. Muito preta, que só eu sei o que é ser preta. Só eu sei. Só eu sei o que é ser preta nesse mundo, nesse corpo, nessa vida. Só eu sei. Muito mulher preta. Eu sou preta, uma mulher forte, foda, muito preta. Muito preta. Eu sou muito preta. É assim? É assim? É assim que é ser preta no Brasil? É assim? É assim? Eu tô perguntando. É assim? É assim? É assim que é ser preta? É assim?
Thank you very much. Now, you have just experienced the very powerful and emotive performance of Born to Exist, The Woman I Know, created by Joseph Toonga. Can you join me in saying a huge thank you to Aisha, Amanda and Paris for that extraordinary performance? So, to discuss the performance, the issues raised, and a wider discussion on gender equity in dance, I'm joined by my esteemed panel. Let me introduce you to them again. We have the creative producer of the Royal Ballet, Emma Southworth, emerging choreographer of the Royal Ballet, Joseph Toonga, Rambert dancer, Aishwarya Raut, and independent hip-hop creatives, Kloe and Nadia Gardner. Hi, everyone. I'd like to start with you first, Emma, here at the... it's a big conversation, isn't it, the issue of gender in dance. There are so many areas that we could go through. Yeah. But why is it such an important one for the Royal Opera House?
Yeah, it is. It's a really big conversation. I think we could be here for the rest of the evening. I suppose, particularly in my position at the Royal Ballet, we've been thinking about cultural change probably over the last 10 years. And we've set ourselves up to be a ballet company for the 21st century. And of course that includes doing many things, but one of those things is embedding diversity through our work. And that for me is really important, but also goes back to our founding principles about looking after your heritage, looking to the future, but really looking after the present. And that's really about keeping the art form moving forward. So you don't get rid of your heritage, but you keep the art form moving forward, and that's how you keep all those different bits alive. And diversity for me is really important in that, in terms of looking forward and who's making the work, who have we got on stage, who's behind the stage, what are the stories we're telling. And bringing all those influences in, I really believe makes the art form better, more exciting, gives us that really handsome future. And I suppose, you know, in terms of today's discussion, part of that diversity is gender diversity. You know, it's important to me as a woman, of course. We started a piece of work. It was before COVID. I sort of lost track of time before COVID, with a group of organisations up and down the country, with an organisation called Tonic Theatre. And the work we did with them over the course of 2 or 3 years was really about pulling apart what the problem was in terms of ballet, in terms of dance, where were all the female choreographers. And from that piece of work we did, I think our roster of choreographers has diversified, particularly in terms of gender, and bringing in the likes of Pam Tanowitz, Crystal Pite, Kathy Marsden, you know, so that roster is changing. But we've always got to be on it. You know, you can't sit back and go, right, that's done now. So that's, you know, broadly for the Royal Ballet why it's important, because we've got to keep this art form vibrant, current, and relevant for our audiences, and that means everyone.
And part of that action towards equity, and not just equality, is bringing someone like Joseph as an emerging choreographer. What has the experience been for you as someone with a completely different background to the majority of the people that you're probably working with in this building? What has it been like, and how do you think that sort of work that you're doing drives towards the ambition for equity?
It's been interesting. I think, like Emma said, I think it's a journey. I think that, if I'm not talking about the Royal Opera House, but more the Royal Ballet, it's a journey that they are trying to understand. When you bring someone of my background, what does that mean? It's not just pulling me into the door. It's, okay, what do you do when I'm in the door if you're not familiar with my background, my mannerisms? There's many different factors. And I think that is something that was still in the learning process. But I think for me as an artist, being in that space is, how do I, in that position, get others who reflect me and reflect my background within this space? I think that's one of my most important aspects, I think, of my role. Yes, it's making work, but how do I also get the Opera House, the Royal Ballet, to look further than myself, so it doesn't become like, oh, Joseph was a tick box for 2021 to 2023, and we've done it, and then there's no one else. So it's like, what can I do to facilitate and fight and push for other artists to step in that, yes, another male choreographer. Okay, cool, but how do you get other female choreographers? Because I think the difficult question is that when people say, where are the female choreographers, they're there. It's just, how do you access them and give them the opportunity to develop and flourish and know that that journey has an up, has a down. And I think that's, I feel personally, sometimes what is missing, that sometimes I'm given an opportunity to fail, but if I'm not speaking on behalf of Kloe, but if Kloe makes something bad, it's like she's given less chances to fail. She has to make it. So it's that thing where we're in the same boat, but then there's less opportunity for the guys. So
Well, let's ask them. I'm mindful of time, so sorry to cut you. But as female choreographers, what has been your experience? Do you think part of the challenge is, if we're talking about change and equity, there is some disruption in that. You're moving away from the status quo. What's been your personal experience in trying to bring different voices and narrative and experiences to wider communities, to institutions such as this and beyond?
I think it's a bit of a grey area, and it's definitely been a challenge for me personally over the past 20 years in my journey, because I think there's an easy way out, and I do these events myself, but I'm starting to change it. But I think there's a lot of like all female events that support women. It's all about women, but I think not necessarily the problem, but the grey area is that we then just stay in a box and we become the choreographers that get called to do the all-female events, if that makes sense, and not the general consensus of you're actually a great choreographer, so I'm going to invite you to represent as a choreographer, not just as a female choreographer. And I think the challenges that I've found is in tackling female representation, especially as choreographers, is I think our male counterparts creating the space for us to be, as opposed to kind of going, oh, you need some help. I think there's a big difference. And I respect that it's hard to navigate it, but I think the biggest change that can happen right now is, instead of like having all female events, is maybe look at the lineup already that you have for your general shows, and that if it's 90% male, then looking at why that is. I did a study, we did a kind of like a bit of a research back in 2019 with my company, Myself UK Dance, and we asked some people about, like, some programmers about like who they would look for, and just honestly, like, would they hire or bring on female choreographers, and a lot of them were really honest, and they felt like they didn't know a lot of female choreographers that were on a certain level. So again, I think it's just finding a way to gain that visibility that isn't really kind of like patronizing and like, oh, you need some help, but also looking at maybe some of the male choreographers can be honest and be like, you know what, I think this person could do this instead of me, rather than
giving up space.
That's just, sorry. My personal opinion.
So if we're looking at the whole notion of embracing equity, and the short time that we've had, Nadia, what do you think success would look like? What would, if you say, yeah, we've got there, what would it look like?
That's a really hard question, because I find it quite difficult to measure, especially within the world of dance, what success looks like. I think that's a really ambiguous question. I do think that the likes of Joseph coming into this particular parameter is one step towards success. And if we were to measure it, that's just a very minute part of it. But again, it's not just looking at those that are already named, it's looking at the emerging that is coming up, and looking at those that are doing other work outside of that. And I think that also goes toward the progression of success, for me anyway. I recently done a film, so I've been a dancer with Kloe for the last 20 years, and being a mum of two, the whole world changed for me, and I found that it changed in dance for me personally, because I was no longer seen as that dancer, I was seen as a mum. And then I'm a psychologist as well, so I combined my work of psychology and dance. And again, I've won an international award, and I've done really well with my film called Awoken Soma. And you sit there and think to yourself, right, but how do I get this out onto this platform? Because even though successfully, it's got an accolade and it's done really, really well, that measure, in answer to your question, in the wider form, for me, hasn't been successful, because in actual fact, I'm just Nadia, not known. However, you know, there's others who are known and successfully are doing more, even though we're actually doing as much as them. So it's a really, really challenging question, but I think platforms like this, pushing out more audiences, understanding more about the cultural differences as well, will also lead to success, because it also leads to a wider society of voice and talk in order for us to be pushed out a lot more.
I just wonder, Aishwarya, whether anything that you've heard resonates with you and what your personal experience has been in this.
I think everything that all of them have said, I can relate to, and I understand and resonates with me, because I feel as a performer, so I grew up in Mumbai, and it is a very patriarchal society and culture that I was a part of. And I had to find my way around it to understand who I am, not in the context of the society, but just as me, and get out of there and try and find my footing here in a completely new world, where I thought it would be a bit different. I was talking to Nadia earlier. It is slightly different, but it's not that different. It's subtle, but it's still the same. I still feel like I don't necessarily fit in to what the stereotypical femininity and what for the female is. And then I went back and I was thinking about representation in the arts and in the contemporary world, because that's what I'm most familiar with. I have not, till date, maybe, performed a work by a choreographer who is from the global majority, having been in different companies so far, and especially a female choreographer. So that also says a lot about who has been represented, because nobody is voiceless. I think everybody has a voice. It's just up to us whose voice we want to listen to or give opportunity to. And seeing what I saw today, I think this needs to be represented and heard a lot more. And I want to do more work for people who have a voice that is not heard. And I feel like all of you were saying, that there is work being done, but at the basis of it, I still feel it as a performer and someone maybe who wants to create in the future, that there's a lot more opportunity, a lot more confidence given to my male counterparts, like my male peers, as opposed to someone who they just maybe like, oh, maybe I can give her a chance, maybe she can choreograph, maybe, we don't know. But if someone I have worked with who's maybe, in my opinion, I was like, okay, I don't necessarily think your voice needs to be heard right now, my opinion, but it is heard. So, yeah, that's what I feel.
So the challenge here, though, is the fact that we've just had years with the pandemic that's decimated the arts. There's less money around for the arts. So, and this is a commercial world, do you think then that the problem is that major institutions are playing safe? They want the established choreographers and dancers, and they're inevitably either white or male. We have to look again at the leaders in the arts, the decisions, the value systems there. Is it seen as risky to embrace equity? And how do we get around that? Is that part of the difficulty for you?
Do you know, I don't think it's risky. It takes time and a lot of thinking. And I think if you go back to the work, say, we did with Tonic, that project was over 3 years and continues. It's not a quick fix, because it goes back to all the... what I really learned from doing that was the sort of the process of actually picking systems really properly apart, right down to what's happening when children are 6. Where's the selection happening there? Where's the enthusiasm being built for dance? Where are the girls being allowed to choreograph if they're not that confident? What happens when they go to school? What I found really interesting when we started that work was, if you looked at the Royal Ballet School, at that point, they had choreographic competition. It was equal girls and boys. There was no difference there. What was interesting was looking what happened when they joined the company. What happened to the workload, for the men and women? This is very specific to ballet, but I think the sort of way of picking apart is sort of the same. So at every point, what's happening that means that women are falling out of the system? Motherhood is another one. They fall out of the system. It's very difficult to then get back into the system. How you then looked at, well, confidence plays a part. And what I really noticed, I went to a talk that the Fawcett Society organised at. We were talking about it before, weren't we? At the House of Parliament, and it was really about why women MPs are now falling out of the system, why there are less women MPs, and actually all the things were sort of the same. It was these systemic things that weren't necessarily people like outrightly going to keep women out of the system, but that's how it sort of all built up. That all these little things were happening that meant that women are falling out of the system or find it hard to get into the system. So lots of the work, like with Joseph's post of this emerging choreographer post, that again, it was looking at diversity in terms of diversity generally in the system, but that was really about where we'd unpick the system. How are we going to really open our doors at the Royal Ballet? How are we really going to welcome people in? And actually you can't, talking about equity and you can't just go, oh, just come in for this one hit time and you make a piece. Oh, it probably didn't work. Yeah. Well, never mind. The point of having an emerging choreographer post was to do it for more than just a one-off opportunity.
To have a legacy.
Yeah.
Let me just come back to you then, Joseph. You've been given this opportunity and you've constantly said it's about changing narrative, it's about bringing new stories, it's about opening the doors. Does it feel like a pressure because you're the one, the chosen one, as it were? What do you see? I mean, when you finish this journey, what would you like to feel the difference you've made being here?
I think for me is hopefully to somebody else that comes into the position after. But I think for me it's more because of who the Royal Ballet is in the world in terms of ballet. It's like up there. So what they do, everyone looks at. So I think, for me, what success will look like is that the ballet companies around the world start reflecting their demographic that they represent. And I think that is something that needs to happen more. And then I think if the Royal Ballet can, try to help that kickstart, okay, Joseph is in here, that's great. But what other opportunities can we provide outside of me for people to make work in the company as well? So we actually give a different avenue, that we have a base that is a choreographer for a certain period of time, but we have off opportunity that we just start listening to different voices. So the performers, the dancers in the company get used to different ways of making, so they get open, they can voice actually, we want more choreographers from here, from there, because it's also up, if you expose more of the company, then they also have a more voice to express what they want. And I think if they only see, the normal faces come in, season out, and you ask them, oh, who do you want? They've got to say the same name. Right. But if you expose them to more stuff in the studio, actually they may find, actually I have an interest for Kloe, I have an interest for this, I have an interest for that. Actually, can you bring that person in? And it's about the company maybe providing opportunities so you have a platform to showcase your work, and knowing that you're the Royal Ballet. I know if I message the Guardian, they may not reply. But I know if the Royal Opera House message the Guardian, they will come. So it's also using that resources and the name of the company and actually how do they use their power to get other people in the space to look at the diversity of other artists that's in this space.
I'm very mindful of time, and I don't want us to leave here feeling like Eeyore. I want us to leave feeling like Winnie the Pooh. So I want to ask the three of you in particular, we're talking about equity, we're not talking about equality here. So equity means that you recognise that different people, different communities, different genders have different needs, and you kind of try and make it an even playing field in terms of opportunities. So who do you think has the most, in terms of dance in a generic sense, who has the most needs and who has the most power to change things? big question I know for 5 minutes. Yeah. If you were in government, for example, what would be your, leaders in the dance world, what would be your priorities in terms of who do you feel? Is it women? Is it contemporary choreographers? Who do you think has the most need to bring us to an equal playing field? But whose responsibility is it to make that change? Sorry, the question's yours. The answer's yours, the question's mine.
Wow.
What would be your priorities and change?
I think it's been touched on a little bit, but I just think that the issue is deeper than just bringing people into a program or bringing female choreographers into a program. Just because I think if you've been suppressed for so long, your confidence is generally not going to be great anyway. So I think it's looking at how maybe as a community, and I'm not just saying as like one style, but just as dance, the dance industry, maybe looking at how there's certain pathways that can be built that are continuous, because again, it's been mentioned, but there's a lot of artist development programs that are like a month or a week or like, and then there's no follow-up. And I think on top of already feeling suppressed as a female choreographer, knowing where your next thing is going to come from is already a pressure. So I think just looking at it as a career path in how, I guess, female choreographers can maybe be supported or seen more, or given that space. I know that hasn't answered your question, but it's a very hard question to answer.
It is, I know.
Yeah.
Nadia, do you have any thoughts?
I think it's the responsibility of all of us in the industry.
Yeah.
It doesn't just boil down to one person, and I do believe it's power in, as I said before, power in voice. I think there's people that can be very influential but can be very quiet, and it's time to start talking up and really saying, actually, regardless of the consequences, no, it's time for us to be a real community. Dance for me is one language. In whatever genre you see it, it's one language, and everybody understands that language, so therefore it's one voice. And I think that's the problem at the moment. We've got silences, we've got people working in silo, and that silo actually is very, very loud. So it needs to come together. And that's my wish list. But it's going to take time.
Thank you. So Aishwarya, programs aside, you're involved with an established dance company, and you've had experience internationally as well. What for you is next? What should be next?
For the company?
In terms of progress.
Oh, in terms of progress. I think, like Nadia was saying, it's all our responsibility, and I think for me would be to ask questions when we're watching a work or probably participating in a work, like whose story is it to tell, and is that the person to be telling that story? And if it isn't, then maybe challenging that and having the courage, and I think the power in the collective of us to ask and challenge that. And I think that would be the next step slowly towards maybe having a little bit more of a diverse community of artists being supported and having each other's backs in that sense. I would like to see more, in the future, perform more works by more diverse creators. I think that's progress for me, be it in whatever art form, be it on contemporary hip-hop or even in the film industry or like short, whatever really. I think that.
Can I also, just add one more thing to that, sorry.
Of course.
I think also at the top, there needs to be much more diversity at the top as well for those decision makers. And it's not just women, it's neurodivergent, it's gender neutral. You've got all those elements that come into it, and it plays a massive part at the decision makers at the top. At the moment, it's very few and far between. And that does need to change.
Right. The other thing, I know we haven't got time because we're running out, but audiences obviously have to be taken into consideration. You want bums on seats. So do you think it's a case of, like you're doing now, spoon-feeding those that come to see Wolf Works and those that come to see Nutcracker or whatever, spoon-feeding them Born to Exist and, encourage them to open their minds about what good dance is?
Yeah, it really, yeah, and I think when you look at your programme, you know, you've got to have, I mean, we've not long opened this new Limbury Theatre and actually got going again after COVID. And for me as a programmer, you've got to find a starting place, but as you go on that programming journey, you've got to bring the audience with you. And so you've got to start, you know, creating the most diverse program. As a programmer, you've got to be looking out as widely as you can to show, you know, sort of back to what we were saying right at the start, actually demonstrate the breadth of what dance can be. And, you know, particularly in this building where we're working with ballet, the breadth of what ballet can be and where you can push ballet as an art form. And really keep the art. You've got to keep art forms moving forward, haven't you? Otherwise, they're going to become, you know, fossilised, and that's the excitement for me, that you've always got to have your eye open to find those outside influences to come and disrupt, to come and challenge what you're doing, and you know, who's making the work, really.
Well, sadly, I'd love to keep this conversation going and keep it moving, because it's definitely one that needs to continue, and definitely one that's just so much more that should be done and can be done. So I'm sad to have to say, we have to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you, Joseph, very much for bringing us this powerful performance, and to the dancers again. And also, can you help me in thanking our panel, Emma, Kloe, Nadia, Aishwarya, for this really vital conversation. Thank you very much for joining us here in the Limbury and beyond, those of you watching elsewhere. Hope you've enjoyed your International Women's Day. Good night.